What's up, everybody? Today is Friday, October 23rd, 2020. This is A Talk in the Attic, which means I'm your host, Kirk Ross. Why, yes, it was my birthday yesterday. How sweet. I actually didn't think you'd remembered, honestly. At this point in life, of course, birthdays aren't quite as fun as they tended to be in my earlier years. I'm 36 now, which I can assert with full certainty is the exact age at which a man begins to catch glimpses of himself in the mirror and for a second wonders, hey, who's that guy? I appreciated all the birthday love yesterday. Jessica provided the ideal evening, one that saw us smoke down before trying to recreate professional quality theme music for Survivor. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. Albeit coincidental, another wonderful event took place yesterday on my actual birthday. I had occasion to speak for nearly 2 hours with one of my oldest and dearest friends, Michael Joseph Morosi, who agreed to sit down for an official interview. That episode will drop next week. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, people, because the conversation you're about to hear is with my new friend, Mike Logan. Some of you already know him as the ice-cold comedian. Some of you are learning about Mike for the first time right now. But if you're involved at all in the Grand Rapids comedy scene, or the Michigan comedy scene, or the national comedy scene for that matter, then you already know about this guy. Personally, I was introduced to Mike through Reddit, where I saw his politically charged and perfectly toned video in response to that racist gas bag known as Barry County Sheriff Dar Leaf. Dar Leaf, really? Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, then don't worry because I will be using it as the lead-in to the interview in just a minute. But after reaching out to Mike with an invitation to come on the show, we quickly scheduled a sit-down in his office in downtown Grand Rapids. And from the moment I walked into the room with Mike, I was swallowed up in his infectious energy. Mike is undeniably positive. He's undeniably funny. And he's making a living as a comedian/content creator, a distinction that millions of us want, but that very few actually achieve. As is always the case these days, this episode is available in both audio and video forms, so please go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Please subscribe, comment, share, review. Honestly, I don't care what the verb is, just do something to engage with the show if you can. I know it's a difficult ask for you to move your thumbs a couple more times to help out your mans, but please find it in your heart if you can. What's not a difficult ask is that you stick around for my wonderfully entertaining conversation with Grand Rapids' own ice-cold comedian, Mike Logan. And without further ado, here is that conversation with, of course, bookend support by Mike's original comedy, mixed in with a little music, so both at the beginning and the end of the interview, you'll get to hear Mike, see Mike. You all ready for this? Let's start the show.
Oh, hey. Mike Logan here with a special message for Barrett County Sheriff Dar Leaf. It's okay, Dar. It's okay that as a sheriff, you don't understand that your job is to protect people like the governor from groups like the terrorist organization that tried to kidnap her. And it's okay that you don't understand that the rebel flag is considered racist. Let me help you out. It is. It's also okay that we, as citizens of Barry County, want you out of this county as sheriff because, you're racist and you hang out with known terrorists. That seems pretty obvious, right? Anyway, I don't understand how you can sit on the Capitol steps and make really bad jokes like, I hear they're gonna ban pool because it's a bunch of white balls hitting a colored ball. You should do stand-up, Dar. Anyway, I'm gonna stop wasting my time thinking about you and get back to this foosball I was playing. You've heard of foosball, right? It's that game where these giant colored guys beat the shit out of a tiny white ball. You've heard of it. Anyway, it's okay, Dar. Ah, man, I suck at decent, right? Oh, and I've decided that Dar must be an acronym for a dumb asshole racist. Okay.
I'm here with Mike Logan.
Hey.
We're in downtown Grand Rapids. This is a cool office, man.
Thank you. We can thank James for that, my friend who owns this floor. But yeah, it's I just got moved in here 2 months ago. I moved in here because getting work done at home is hard, and I have a lot of work to do. It's weird though, because most of my work isn't like, it's not like sitting down and like writing a bunch of stuff. It's mostly just being on a computer all the time, which I can't do at home, because if I'm on a computer at home, I'm just like doing other stuff.
Right, yeah.
So then, and also it's really good to, I have a lot of meetings and I do a lot of interviews. And so it's good to just have a place to go to instead of having to go to like bars and shit all the time, which I used to have to do. But.
Yeah, it allows you to put a boundary around your work a little bit. Although you don't strike me as someone that has a lot of boundaries on your work.
I have extreme boundaries on my work. I have to, or else like.
People are listening. Who are you? Tell me, not exactly your whole backstory, but how do you identify now? You're a comedian?
Yeah, I'm Mike Logan, aka Ice Cold Comedian. So I'm a comedian / content creator. I used to be just a comedian. Now I am my toes in kind of every form of entertainment that there is. I act, I do voiceover work, I fucking do video work, I obviously do comedy, and I also produce comedy shows.
Yeah.
And I also have a podcast. I have not talked about my podcast once.
You have your own podcast?
I do. I have a movie review podcast.
What's it called?
It's called This Better Be Good. The format is actually quite unique. I'm pretty proud of it. It's because what we just talked, people who don't know, before we started recording, we just talked about podcasts. Yeah. And I was talking about how everybody has a podcast, and like 20,000 of them are just two guys talking to each other. And so I was like, if I ever do a podcast, it will be something that nobody else is doing. And I can say completely that my podcast, there is no other format like it in the world.
Oh, come on, let's hear it.
It is, I review a movie before seeing it, and then review it again after seeing it.
So how
and
do
it's
you
all in one episode.
So you review it based on what the movie covers?
So we review it on, so I have a film degree. So like I know a lot about film, and my friend and comedian friend, Garrett Elzinga, who also lives here in Grand Rapids, who's actually the house MC now at Dr. Grin's. He and I do it together, and he is a huge film buff. So like between the two of us, we've seen every movie on IMDb's top 250 of all time.
Nice.
Probably most of it between, like, one of us individually has seen most of them. But we go in and I have, like, I ask questions about the cast, what we think the plot's going to be like, the history of directors. Like, there's a lot of in-depth stuff that we talk about before the pod. And then we do things called, like, we have arbitrary ratings, and then we also do bold predictions, which is Garrett normally says. But our bold prediction we'll put at the beginning of the podcast, and it'll be some crazy, outlandish prediction that we have that will happen in the movie. Yeah. We had to make them outlandish because we used to do really realistic ones.
And then what happened?
Well, yeah, but then we'd be waiting for them in the movie, and it would ruin the movie experience. Like we'd be like, oh, I predict this guy's gonna die this movie. And then the whole movie, I'm just like,
you're rooting for him to die.
Yeah, he's gonna die. So we changed it now to where we have to say things like, yeah, we'll be watching like Hubie Halloween, which is the new Adam Sandler movie, and my bold prediction will be like, yeah, Liam Neeson's gonna show up and stab Hubie Halloween in the chest. Like that's the bold prediction. And then we do our arbitrary rating where we then give the movie a review based on not seeing it yet. Right. And the rating is always like, we give this movie 10 hedgehog tape dispensers out of 10. Like, that's what we do. But usually it's something related to the film. Then you get an ad in there because we like to make money. Then you get the trailer for the movie. And then the second half is our actual review. So each episode's between 30 and 45 minutes long. Yeah. And we're pretty popular. We've got 5 stars out of 20 reviews on iTunes.
Nice. Go check it. It'll be in the show notes. I'll link it to it in our show
Perfect,
notes.
Yeah. And then we broadcast out of Anchor, but we get really good engagement. We've done we're working on right now doing a live recording, like renting out a movie theater and having our fans come and watch a movie with us for
Dude, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's so cheap, dude. Yeah. It's like $300 to rent a theater at Celebration.
Have you looked more recently?
This was last weekend.
I was gonna say, yeah. It could have been more before they were like. I mean, that whole business model could be going down the drain.
Well, so this is an interesting fact. So I work with Celebration a lot because I book out of the listening room in Studio Park. So I book a large pro show out of that venue. So I know like JD Lokes and I know like the manager there. I also don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but Celebration, I'll say this. Celebration is not going to go under.
Right.
Like they've
got a bunch of, they're very diverse in terms of their.
Well, they just own a lot of real estate. So they never stop making money. AMC doesn't own real estate. Like, Imagine doesn't own real estate. Like all these other theaters are going under because they have no way to make money. But Celebration is doing fine because they didn't lose them. They definitely lost money, but.
Like this one up here, Celebration North on Knapp Corner in Grand Rapids. They own the real estate that all the bars and restaurants in it, and like Jude's and all that.
The one right next to us, the one Studio Park, they own all that too.
Yeah, so
like they own that, like Canopy, the hotel's right next to it. They own that. They own the land.
I'm not talking trash about any business owner who isn't highly diversified or anything like that. Everyone's doing their thing, but the reality is that people that have really strong businesses aren't struggling as bad right now.
Right.
You know, it's like
because their business were designed to succeed even if something like this happens.
Yeah, do we really need 30 restaurants downtown Grand Rapids to sell burgers and fries? Really?
Exactly.
We really probably don't. I'm not saying I hope they go to business, but it's like...
Well, I mean, it's like I used to work for, I'll say it because there's only one restaurant left open, but I used to work for Bagger Days Burger Tavern when I first moved here. Yeah. And I was a corporate bartender trainer for them. So they'd send me to new bar openings. And they were opening restaurants like every 2 months. And that was such a new business. And like, I have a little bit of business savvy. Now I have way more. But back then I had a little bit of business savvy. And I was just like, you guys are expanding too fast. Like, nobody even knows who you are.
Nobody wants to get a margarita and smell like a burger the rest of the night anyway. It smells like burgers in that place.
Also, their burgers are like $13. Like, that's an expensive burger.
They're like fast foodie burgers.
It's like it's a fine burger, but it's not a $13 burger.
Yeah. Oh,
but yeah, Celebration's doing fine. But
we got off on a tangent. That's okay. So
I like tangents.
So Mike Logan, you're a comedian, content producer, content creator. Talk a little bit about the production side, because it seems like you've got a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the production side of comedy and some of the festivals that you've thrown or some of the things that you've thrown that you're proud of.
Yeah, the production side's the side that I think people don't understand how much work goes into. Like I'll use the Mike Logan's Backyard Comedy Jam as an example. For anyone who hadn't heard of it or didn't go to it or doesn't know what it is, I produced, I think it was in July
of 2020.
Yes.
So
I produced, this past summer, I produced a 100-guest, 14-comic, 10 staff, socially distanced, mask enforced comedy festival in one day with 0 cases of COVID that came from it. And then I did it again the next month.
Right.
And the White House couldn't do it once. I'm just saying.
What do you guys believe in it?
I mean, I was very, right, I was very much like, we should all stay safe because I believe this is real. But yeah, those 2 shows were probably the hardest ones I've ever produced. But they all follow the same kind of model. The show starts off as an idea, like, okay, I want to do a show.
What was the idea behind Mike's Backyard Barbecue?
The idea is pretty funny, actually. Me and Rebecca and I, my fiance, were sitting in our backyard. And I have a pretty decent-sized backyard for living on the west side of Grand Rapids. And I'm looking at there. I think we were smoking a joint. And I look, and I'm just like, man, this would be a great place to have a comedy show. And this was, during the lockdown, so like nobody had produced anything yet. Like the city hadn't produced any shows. There had been no comedy since March. Like Laugh Fest was canceled before it was over. The city still hadn't come up with like, now they think they have like programs and things for people to do. But there was like 3 months where
it's just a stalemate.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I guess I could try to throw a party in my backyard. So I'm like, all right, how do I do this? I got to fundraise. Let's see what we can find to get some money. My friend Kevin Farhead, who owns Garage Bar, had just done that Garage Bar Gives program where they were giving away free meals for like 3 months. It was amazing. They gave away tons of free meals every day, and he raised a shit ton of money to do it. So I go to him one day, and Kevin and I have a great relationship. We've worked together for years. I'm like, hey man, can you like teach me, like tell me like how you got the fundraising for the amount of money that you did? He's like, what do you need money for? And I'm like, well, I'm producing this comedy show in my backyard. I want to pay the comics a decent amount. And like the idea was, I was gonna get as many comics as I could, 10 probably, as much as I could afford. I was gonna pay them like hopefully $25 to do like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is $25 to do 5 minutes is a good amount of money.
Hell yeah.
And I say this to him, and he's like, yeah, I don't think your backyard's good enough for that. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, so Garage Bar's across the street from Sandy Point Beach House, which has this gigantic parking lot, like a huge park, too big, they'll never fill it. Yeah. They'll never fill it. And so he says, dude, Pete hasn't been open since the pandemic ended. He would probably love it if we put some guests in his parking lot. And I'm like, okay, sure. He's like, then we can like,
get food trucks or yeah.
He's like, we can do food trucks. We can invite more people. Like you can charge more for it. And I'm like, okay. I was gonna just do, like I said, like 10 comics. I was gonna maybe invite 25 people, and I was gonna charge like I think $5 a ticket. So what I ended up doing was, he's like, here's what we'll do. We could fundraise. I don't see why we couldn't pay every comic $100 for 5 minutes. And then I was like, really? He's like, yeah, and then we can even do more comics if you want. Like, he got really excited about this. So I'm like, okay. So I reached out to a bunch of comics. I got 14 comics. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to pay him each $100, right? He's like, yep. And I'm like, all right, that alone is $1,400, which is more than I'd ever spent on a comedy show before. Right. And he's like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'll be able to raise that, no problem. I'm like, sweet. Couldn't raise the money. Couldn't raise the money.
It's easier to raise money when you're giving meals away to people.
Yeah, then when you're like, this is an all-black comedy show a month after George Floyd was murdered during a pandemic. And he's just like, yeah, nobody will give us any money. And I was like, oh, what are we going to do? He's like, well, I guess we'll just pay for it. And like this was before, like I'm very comfortable now, but I had just started to get comfortable. So I was just getting a little bit of money, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I can spare some. Yeah. And so then he put in most of the bill for the first show. And I just ended up spending $600 out of my pocket, and then he ended up covering the rest. But the show went perfectly.
So
without a hitch, no cases. Everyone followed the rules. The comics all did great. Everyone had a great time.
Yeah.
After that show happens, other shows start popping up. The city starts contacting me. Hey, we saw the show you did. Like, how did you do this? How'd you form it? Like, we had to blueprint the show.
Yeah.
Like, in order to, like, see people. But this is one of our anniversaries.
That's super cool, yeah.
So I'm talking to them about how to do it, and then I get approached by somebody about doing another show. So I'm like, sure, we can do this show. This time they want to do an all LGBTQ lineup. And so I'm like, okay. And I warned them, I was like, last month I could not fundraise any money for an all black lineup. And black is like in right now. So I'm going to warn you, this might be difficult.
I bet you it was easier than being black.
It was worse. Because, again, I couldn't get any funding, but this time I didn't have Kevin backing me. So this time Pete, who runs the parking lot across the street, he saw what I could do for him. So I got him 100 guests, and the show sold out in 3 days. So the show was like, I announced it 3 months in advance. It sold out. I told him, I'm like, dude, you have 100 guests built in. All you have to do is run your restaurant. Like,
yeah.
So, the night went perfect.
He would have never gotten anywhere near 100 guests.
He wasn't open. That was the first day he'd been open since the pandemic. Yeah. So, but I mean, like, people were drinking, they were ordering food. So then he's like, we got to do this again next month. And I was like, well, if something comes up, I'll make sure to come at you. But I'm not going to force myself to do it. Because, like, again, I'm very much on the doing things when I want to train.
Right.
So then I get approached by somebody, Ginger Ambrosia, who's a drag queen here in town. And
I'm going to shut this real quick.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, you gotta pull it. Oh. Yeah. And
I was looking through there.
She says, I want to do an all LGBTQ show, and I saw your show you did last month. Can you do that again for me? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that again for you. I have no problem doing that. And also, I had just gotten my first Airbnb check, so I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I got nothing to do. So then she says, I'd like to host the show, and I was like, you host the show, I'll handle everything else. Like, I genuinely do like producing.
Yeah.
So she's like, cool, I'll get some drag queens that I know, and then some queer comics, and I was like, I know some queer pro comics that I can reach out to for you.
Yeah.
Because like she's not really well connected in the comedy scene, and so we get the comics together, we get the lineup done. I tell everybody, we get to make the group. I tell everybody, we're all getting paid $100 to do this show. It's gonna be great. Sandy Point Beach House, tickets go on sale, blah blah blah. Tickets go on sale. The show sells out again, and then a week before the show, I still have not been able to get any funding for it. And I've hit literally everybody. I'm at the point now where I've messaged the Monroe North Business Association, and they were like, we're out of money. Like, everybody said they had no money.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to pay for this show. So I paid for that show in its entirety, which was $1,300.
You're the executive producer of that as well.
Yes. And so those kinds of roadblocks were like the first time I ever run into those kind of giant ones. I never really ran into a big problem like that before. It's always been like a comic drops the day of the show and I got to replace them or something like that.
Right. Which, yeah, you're putting out fires all the time.
Yeah, but it's never something like, you now have to pay $1,300 to produce this show. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I didn't have a problem doing it because, one, I could afford it, and two, I thought it was really worth it. Then the last show I just produced last month, because every month I produce one pro show, was actually in my backyard. And it was only 25 people, and it was the easiest show I ever produced because I didn't have to leave my house. I literally just woke up and kept doing stuff all day. I just kept slowly setting up a venue in my backyard.
Not having to travel if you forgot something. It's like,
it was
that's
so
huge.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I've got all the lighting at home and stuff. So it was a big, I had a DJ. And the reason I did it like that was because a couple of people had done house shows, and I've been to them, and they're good house shows. But every time I do anything, I don't like to half-ass anything. I've gotten to the point now where I think I've built up an image, or a brand at least, that says if you're going to a Mike Logan show,
it's a pro thing.
It's a pro thing. It's going to be professionally done. It's going to be good. Yeah. So I'm like, there better be a DJ. It better be, and it was great. It was a fantastic show.
Yeah.
But yeah, production side of comedy is very easy when you're working with yourself. But it can get really difficult anytime you start adding more and more people. Like, the more people that are involved, the more they want to see it go this way. And it's annoying in comedy because I don't know how it is in any other profession, but I know in comedy people don't respect comedians. Even if they hire them to do something, knowing that we're an expert in that field, still don't respect us.
Yeah, you're kind of a clown to some extent. To some
it's
people,
really annoying.
Yeah,
and it's like when you ever watch Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher.
Yeah.
whenever he has a comedian on, the pundits don't take the comedian seriously.
I know. By the way, a lot of times the comedians are the ones dropping the best.
Right?
like when Hughley's on there and those guys.
Seth MacFarlane was a really good guest.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a big fan of Bill Maher, but I do love the format of that show.
Yeah, I do too. He's a douche, but
he's a hardcore douche.
but the show works, man. Like and especially the new rules part. Like I'm always a fan of new rules, but he's self-pious.
He really is. He's like a really bad example of like a liberal, like in my opinion.
Oh
like,
yeah.
He's just so hardcore liberal.
Super anti-religion
He
and all
hates
that.
everything. How do you have that much hate and claim to be a liberal?
But I don't like it. Then the righties will like him because he's kind of anti-Muslim and all that stuff. And then it's like, so wait, you're getting followers from that? Like,
I went on. Do you know Steven Crowder? You will know him. You know the meme "Change My Mind"?
Yeah.
That guy.
Oh yeah.
So that guy is a hardcore right-wing conservative comedian, which I didn't know until like 6 months ago.
Not a lot of those exist.
Not a lot. Like you've got like Dennis Miller, Dennis Leary.
Who's the
Norm Macdonald's conservative, but he doesn't talk about it as a comedy.
Right.
Thank God, because his comedy's great.
I should have put him on my top. I love.
He is really funny. But sorry.
Steven Crowder.
Oh yeah, he's the guy that changed my mind, guy. So when I found out that he was like a hardcore conservative, I decided to go look at his page, and he is evil, like just not a great guy. Like a lot of his stuff it's all hate fuel. Yeah. Like every single post he ever puts on his page is just hating people on the left.
I think we both agree that you can be right wing and not be hateful too.
You can. My friend Sean Williams. I'm going to shout him out right now. Sean Williams. He's like a conservative guy, really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Very nice guy. Obviously, he believes conservative values, which I don't agree with, but he's not mean to people. Like, he's not... I mean, technically, the way he votes is mean, but... but I mean, like...
At a personal level...
Yeah, like, on a personal level, like, he's got homosexual friends, he's got black friends. Like,
yeah.
He doesn't hate people. He just believes in a lot of conservative values, which I think that's how democracy is supposed to work, right? Like, it's supposed to be... A liberal believes in these values, and a conservative believes in these values, but we don't hate each other.
Together, we make something work.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. That's not how it is this year.
It used to be like that, but I don't want to blame all of that on Trump, though.
I do. I 100% do.
He sucks horribly, but like, there's a lot of stuff happening in the last 20 years, though, that have made this a little bit more divisive, including the media and all that stuff, right? I mean,
I kind of agree with that, but the only reason I don't is because I went to a Trump rally. Like, I was here in Grand Rapids the night he won the election, because he was here that night.
Yeah.
I don't know if people realize
He was at like Van Andel? Or?
He was at DeVos.
DeVos, yeah.
And so I went to that because my friend Tina, who's a black woman, wanted to go, because she had seen everybody else already. Like, I had already seen Hillary, I saw Bernie, and I hadn't seen Trump. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. Like, I want to be a fully informed voter.
Experiential.
And also, how am I going to, this is the night of the election.
Talk about comedy gold, too, by the way.
Also, I was Facebook Live the whole night. Like, it was, so I went there, and I was there for 7 hours total, because Trump was very late. And for 6 hours and 40 minutes, it was fine. Like, it was really weird and boring. But it was fine. Like, we all waited in line to get into DeVos around 1 p.m., and we were pretty far up in line, so we got in pretty early. And while in line...
Get a vape pen or something?
I didn't smoke weed at the time. I was only drinking at that time. But it was also before, like, we knew who Trump really was as a president, because this was 4 years ago.
Kind of still thought he was about to lose, so you're kind of...
Well, I didn't think he was about to lose.
No.
I definitely didn't think that he would ruin the country, though. Like, that's what my mentality... I was like, dude, we have checks and balances. There's no reason. This should be fine. Right. So I think... people were kind of still like, oh, it's just Trump.
He's harmless. He's a dummy. Yeah.
And like even in line, it was like not taken serious. Like it was more of a party than it was like a rally. Like when I went to the Hillary and Bernie ones, it was very much, we got to save America. You guys are the truth. Let's do this. Right. We got to beat Trump. And then Trump was just like,
WWE basically.
Yeah, it was really weird, but it was fun. Like people were acting goofy as shit. We were kind of making fun of like the fact that there were only black people selling all the Trump gear. I
know we noticed that at the Bernie one. It was the same way. It was
a lot of people aren't. We won't pass up money. I remember I was talking to people in line, like Trump supporters online. They're like, "What are you guys doing here?" "Oh, we just wanted to come see." "Oh, that's cool." It was great.
Yeah.
We got inside finally, and they started like entertaining us while we were waiting for Trump to get there.
What, like bad music or?
They had music. They had Backstreet Boys playing between every.
It's not the worst.
Speaker. They were selling food in there. I remember I went and bought about $100 worth of chicken nuggets. And I bought them for two reasons.
Bunch of racists in there like, I told you.
One, I know white people love chicken nuggets. And two, I'm going to need a peace offering by the end of this because I'm pretty sure they're not going to like me. Because like it was all good and fun and games before Trump came out. But I knew the second it came out, I was like, it's going to get bad like when he comes out. Because he's going to say something I don't agree with. Yeah. I'm going to be vocal about it because I'm fucking me. Right. And then people are going to like get mad at me. So remember these chicken nuggets later. So, the hours go by, and we keep looking at our phone and see that Trump is delayed. He was flying in from Virginia, but then he stopped somewhere else. So they keep trying to stall. And like by stalling, I mean like they're throwing people out who are scheduled to be out there, but they're talking for, you can tell, way longer than
just
they
talk
for.
They already had nothing to say, by the way.
Yeah, they had like one talking point, and then they're just out there like, so you guys like cars here in Michigan? And then I was mad. I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but it's relevant to what the point I'm trying to get to. Then I was mad because, like, during that whole campaign, it was the end of the election, so they're bringing out the big guns for celebrities, right? Like, Hillary had Lady Gaga. Hillary had Jay-Z and Beyonce. Bernie had Lady Gaga. You know who we got at the Trump rally? Ted Nugent.
Oh, God.
Ted Nugent came out and did a 25-minute rendition of the song Fred Bear.
I know the song well.
I didn't until that night, but I asked somebody, I'm like, is this song normally this long? And they're like, no.
It's already not super short.
I've heard it is long already.
An extended cut of that is as unnecessary as it would get, I imagine.
But apparently he was doing it to stall.
Yeah, of course.
At one point, a guy fainted, apparently, and then Ted Nugent made fun of that guy. It was funny too because I remember a guy falls down and you just see that. Well, when you're in a big group and there's a fight, everybody like turns and looks. So then there's 5,000 people, by the way, in Davos. But then all of a sudden everybody's like focused on one end and we're looking. And Ted Nugent just says, "What happened to that man over there? Was he knocked out by my melodic sounds?" I'm like, dude, get him on doctor. What? They're making jokes about this.
Choking on a chicken nugget, actually.
So then, Mike Pence comes out and it gets a little more serious. Comes out, but it's still not bad.
He's horrible too.
He wasn't horrible in his speech. He didn't say anything nasty. It was just, I'm Mike Pence, blah, 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 I want to be your next vice president. Stuff. No rhetoric, nothing like that. Yeah. So still fine. Then finally, the moment they've all been waiting for, Donald Trump walks out, and then the whole place just goes fucking bonkers, dude. It was like the Beatles showed up.
Like the Pope.
He's
just an old dude. He's
dude,
like,
the women there, the women where they were just like fucking fainting. And I'm like, he's an old, ugly, orange man. What the fuck? So then he comes out and he waves and shit. He starts yakking. The first thing he says is like, DeVos is like, his podium's at the front of the building. He's got the risers behind him with all of his supporters. Then there's the pool of people, like 5,000 of us all crammed in pre-COVID. And then there's the very back and it's all bleachers with tons of reporters. Obviously, every reporter in Michigan is there.
Yeah.
So he comes out, thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody finally stops cheering and he says, everybody take a look behind you, turn around right now. And then everybody turns around and he says, that is the enemy. And then everybody in the room was, fuck you, you fucking piece of shit, fuck it. Like, just immediate hate.
Oh my God.
And like everybody who we were all pounding around with, all of a sudden were different people.
Yeah.
And like I was getting uncomfortable. I was like, dude, this is bad. Like this is really weird. So then they get done and he starts doing his rhetoric, right? This is his but it's being a president rhetoric. Yeah. It was the
wall,
drain the swamp, build the wall, lock her up, and then creating jobs. Like those were his four rhetoric.
He really likes those 3 syllables, or 3 or 4 syllables.
Drain the swamp, lock her up, and build the wall. So like he comes out and he says, Grand Rapids, Michigan, I got a lot of great ideas for Michigan. I'm going to be here all the time when I'm president. He's been here like 4 times. I'm going to be here all the time when I'm president. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring jobs back to Michigan. Woo! It was nuts. This is a great idea, right? So then they quiet down. I, by the way, am like from here to where James is. Like that's how close I am. And I just yell out when the crowd dies down. I'm like, where are the jobs coming from? And then like he didn't look at me, but then everybody in the room like just turns and looks at me, but then looks back to him and he starts talking to him. So then he goes on. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna repeal and we're gonna replace Obamacare. We're gonna get rid of it. Whole place. Oh my God! Yeah, fucking repeal it, get rid of it.
You have a good Trump.
We have a list at my house and I have 67 impressions that I can do.
That's a good one. I'm working on my Trump, man. I don't know if it's because I hate him so much or I have a hard time with that one more than others.
There's a lot of white guys that I can do that people get really surprised by. Like it's a lot of presidents. Like I can do Bush sometimes. Like there's a lot of times when I think to myself, maybe I shouldn't eat pretzels. But But the Trump one's fun because I've been doing Trump since like the 90s.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's been a douchebag since well
before
before
he was since they left that kid home alone in a fucking hotel. So then the second thing, we're gonna build it. People start cheering, crowd dies down, and then I just yell, "What are you replacing it with?" This time he looks at me like real quick. He's just like, and then looks away. And then the whole crowd, some guy in a fucking Tom Brady jersey, turns around and he's like, "Hey, don't talk to my fucking president that way." I was like, "Well, he hasn't won yet, but let's keep going."
So how dare you ask him?
How dare I ask this man a question about his policy? So then he gets to the thing that was my final, like, the straw that broke my back, essentially. And he says, just out of nowhere, "I just want to remind everybody that I have a fantastic relationship with the blacks." Crickets.
Which is by the way, which is something that anybody calling them the blacks is probably not the best start in terms of.
He still calls them the blacks.
There's that one clip where he says something like, "Where's my black? Where's my black?" You know what I'm talking about?
He's so bad, dude.
Oh goodness gracious!
So then there's silence. Not many, like.
You're like, "What are you gonna replace me with?"
I yell. He says, "I have a great relationship with the blacks." I yell, "No, you fucking don't!" Because I'm like one of like 6 black people in that room.
Yeah, and you didn't like him.
Then everybody was done. They had enough of me. Like, they just like they turn around and they're just like, "Get the fuck out of here!" Like they're screaming at me and Tina. La, 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 la. So finally, we just like peeled it fucking out of there, and then Trump won the next morning.
Oh my god! Well, you did your part though. Honestly, the night before the election, you were razzing the president.
Dude,
That's
I have
hilarious.
not quit with him.
I've
been like tagging him on Twitter for the last 4 years. Like anytime he's been in Michigan, I've tried to make it to where he's at. Like I don't like him. I'm not a big fan of him, and it's not about like being Democrat or Republican. I have never liked that guy. Nobody's ever liked that guy.
He's not a cool guy. It's like I have a hard time with like my dad and my uncles who somehow have managed to think that he's fine or something. I'm not proud of that. But like, it's like you would if this guy were at your golf course or at your house, you would hate him.
Yeah.
He's an asshole. He makes fun of everyone. He's better than everyone. He doesn't take accountability or responsibility for everyone. He lies at golf. He lies about everything. You know what I mean? Like this is a guy you would want nothing to do with, but somehow he's the savior or something.
It's weird. 4 years ago, everybody in America was in agreement that Donald Trump was a poor businessman and a bad person. And then he won the presidency, and
now he's got some Christ-like.
200 million people all of a sudden were like, "He's great."
Yeah.
Like what?
And he's the mouthpiece for the evangelists and like the anti and the pro-life movement.
says,
It's like how many abortions has this guy paid for?
Well,
Okay, so
anyway,
we actually decided in advance we weren't going to talk politics, but it's hard to get into.
It's hard not to.
But let's talk about. So you produce comedy. You're 34.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing full-time comedy. It's not most people that want to do comedy can't do comedy. Most people that try to do comedy don't end up doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, you found the recipe. Explain it. Like how long did you want to do it before you did it, and then how did that whole process look of actually finally doing it?
So I wanted to do stand-up since I was a kid, but I've never thought I would ever be able to. I don't know. I think everybody thinks this because they all ask me the same thing. People think it's really hard to get into comedy, and it's very easy. Like, it's stupid easy to get into comedy.
No barrier to entry, really.
Literally none. Like, when I ran an open mic, I wouldn't even ask people to see a clip to sign them up because it's an open mic. Like, you don't have to be talented to do an open mic. If you want to start comedy, you literally just find an open mic, you go there, you find the booker, and you say, "Hey, how do you get booked on this?" And they say, "Oh, just go to the fan page and send in a message," and then boom, you're doing comedy next week. That's
so what do you need, 5 minutes? You need a good 5 minutes prepared?
You need to have, ideally, you would like to have a solid 5 minutes. Like, the idea between your first year of comedy is to perfect 5 minutes. You're not supposed to move on until, like, your 5 minutes is perfect. When you go into it, though, like, my comedy isn't, I think you watched my clips. My comedy isn't, like, Mitch Hedberg or Dimitri Martin, where it's like joke.
It's storytelling.
It's storytelling. It's more Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle kind of comedy.
Right.
Aside from the creepiness of Louis C.K.
Well, although you did masturbate in front of me before we started the show, but
he is one of the best comedians of all time.
By the way,
one of the worst people of all time.
I almost did a whole episode where I just recited his old jokes without ever giving him any credit or anything, and then at the end of it, the point was going to be kind of like, did we cancel him or not? You know what I mean? Because like I'm all for people behaving better. I'm all for it, but like to think that like his work isn't still relevant or his work isn't great is kind of nonsense. Bill Cosby has great work. He's an evil guy.
I've never liked Bill Cosby because he's always had a problem with black youth, but
he was always kind of a little bit like that. Like kind of
pull your pants up, little boy, because now I'm in a place where I don't get to have pants with a belt on.
Exactly. Yeah. But his show that, I mean, you know what I'm saying, people throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
it's really annoying because like Kevin Spacey, like we're gonna forget that Seven happened because Kevin Spacey is a terrible person. Like, yeah, he's an awful human being, and we can condemn him and his actions. But why do we have to fuck up their work too? Especially because other people worked on that stuff. If you condemn the movie Seven, you're condemning the 200-something other people who worked on that film.
Not to mention the fact that I have a friend who lived in New York for a while who's gay, who's in the scene there, and everyone he told me 15 years ago that Kevin Spacey was a creep.
Dude, everybody knew. Everybody knew Louis C.K. was a creep.
Exactly. So the people now that are all of a sudden, you know, it's like, well, the producers knew. It was just worth it.
Well, it wasn't even just worth it. I think that honestly, I think that kind of lifestyle was just accepted in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like there's the right is calling for like the mass just exited of all celebrities because of like there's a lot of really. Once you get into a certain tax bracket, your interests change. It's weird. I don't condone it at all.
Right.
I don't condone it. But like I get why it happens. Like you run out of things that entertain you and you start getting into weird, crazy shit.
Yeah, dude, it's like when money is no longer your currency because you have you have so much of it that it doesn't matter anymore. Control and things like that become what you're trafficking in, you know. And
it's really gross. But like I get it. Like I understand why they do it. I don't approve it. I think it's horrible. And I think there's a really big problem in Hollywood about that. And I don't understand why it's so widely like it's very fucking like ancient Greek. Like, or like to just be like fucking around with like young people.
Yeah, no,
like,
I know.
I don't understand it. I never will understand it.
I hope you don't. If in 10 years I come back for a follow-up interview and you're into
I'm really into like
you're using like human footstool.
Have you tried hunting people recently? It is just the best.
I know it sounds barbaric, but these people don't have anything better to do.
I mean, you get some homeless now. But it's like you look at Louis C.K.'s material. Like, remember that SNL monologue he did all about pedophilia?
Oh yeah.
And like, not that Louis C.K.'s a pedophilia, like that he's into pedophilia, but like he had that monologue about how he understands why, or he understands the reasoning behind.
And we all laugh, you know.
And then when you think about it, it's like his logic is like he loves a Mars bar. Like he loves Mars bars so much that he can't do anything else while eating a Mars bar. But if somebody told him that he would go to prison for the rest of his life for eating a Mars bar, he would stop eating Mars bars, which leads me to believe
pedophilia must be great.
That's what he's. And I love that monologue because yes, he has a very good point. It's a very, very, very good point.
Insatiable.
It's very controversial and people are going to take it the wrong way. Because then he immediately says, "Not for me."
He did that joke where he said he had his eggs. He likes his eggs Philadelphia style.
I don't think I've heard that one.
This became very telling, of course, when all the allegations came out. He said, "Yeah, I like my eggs Philadelphia style." You know what that is, right? It's where you eat scrambled eggs at your house and go on the subway and jerk off real quick. Or something like that.
He has a lot of jokes where he jokes about jerking off to people without them knowing. And like, it's not subtle. Like, he has an episode of Louis where he's on, like, a news program, and, like, the whole joke of him in a news program is he's on there to talk about some, like, woman is mad at comedians for, like, talking, like, being sexist. And like this is a plot in the TV show that he wrote.
Yeah. And which is a good show too, by the way.
It's a very good show. And he's on the panel, and he responds to that woman who says, you know, like, well, like men shouldn't be doing this, like, shouldn't I idolize? And he's like, you're a beautiful woman, though. Why would I idolize you? I'm going to go home and jerk off about you tonight. And like, it's played as a joke on the show, but then it's like, no, he probably really thinks that.
Exactly.
Like,
Dude, yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, So the barrier to entry is small.
Yeah, so there's like no barrier. Like, so when I first got into it, I went to an open mic.
Was this all in Grand Rapids or Detroit area?
I moved to Grand Rapids specifically to pursue a career in entertainment.
Because Detroit wasn't there, or what?
Because Michigan had taken away the tax breaks for like film industries when I got out of school. So like 2008.
Like, and you went into cinema or filmmaking.
Yeah, and then like Michigan took away the tax breaks. So like my plan was to stay in Michigan to like pursue acting, but then they got rid of it in 2008 when Snyder took over. So I moved to Petoskey just to like, you know, to try something else after school. And I lived there for a couple of years, and I was like, all right, I want to get back into entertainment. And I had seen that they started filming movies here in Grand Rapids again. So I moved here. Also, it's closer to Petoskey than Detroit is, and my daughter lives up there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So it's like a 4-hour drive from Detroit, whereas it's a 2.5 from here.
Right.
So I came down here, like the first week I was here, I went to an open mic, and I watched it. And it was a particularly not talented lineup.
Yeah.
And
you just felt like, man, I could fit in here. I could squeeze in here quick.
I remember there was one really good but Jacob Kuban, who's a guy who doesn't live here anymore, lives in LA. Jacob Kuban and Josh Ortega, who still lives here, closed that show. And I watched them, and they were really funny. And I really liked them. And so then afterward, I went up to them, I was like, hey guys, how do you, like, I've been wanting to get a comedy, I think into this. And they're like, oh, just talk to that guy. I was like, cool. So I go talk to him. And he's like, oh, I put new people up quickly, so we'll get you on next week. So I'm like, awesome. I never had a problem with public speaking.
And this is unpaid at this point. This is just
yeah,
open
it's
mic.
unpaid. It's just an open mic.
Yeah.
And so I go there the next week and I tell a really funny story that I actually still tell every now and then in my stand-up. And it does great because it's a very good story. I've been telling it for years.
We should hear it, don't you think?
Sure, why not? Well, I'll come back to it after the story because it's a little long. But I tell the story, people love it, and then afterward, I'm like, dude, I can do this. So then I just started, doing open mics, got blackballed for 2 years. After I got back, kept doing open mics, then people started offering me paid shows. Then once I started doing a couple of paid shows, I started emailing comedy clubs, and I started getting booked and stuff, and comedy festivals, and blah, blah, blah.
And you're sending videos?
You send in a clip, you say, my name is, Mike Logan, I'm a comedian, lives in Grand Rapids, I'm willing to travel to blah, 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 blah. Here are my dates I'm available. And usually you ask like months in advance, so you're pretty open. Like,
right.
I'm available all winter.
And at that point, you're just looking to get in the game, so you probably were available at any time.
At that point, I'm like, I'll make whatever work. Yeah. Like, just tell me when the hell to get on there or to get there. And then you email clubs, and you don't hear back from them for years. That's how you are. That's how it is for most people when you first start. But then eventually they start calling you back, and then you start doing clubs regularly, and then you start getting a following, and once you get a following, you start giving your fans content, and then they start supporting you and cheering you, and then blah, blah, blah. And then also, I think personally, if you talk about or do things that you're passionate about, you just get a following. Like, that's just what happens.
That's what I'm banking on myself. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, when it comes across as if you're doing it to make money or something, it's so obvious for people.
Yeah, it was like our podcast. Like when Garrett and I first started doing it, like. The first thing we talked about was like, what are we gonna do when we start making money? And like podcasts are things that don't make money for years. Like they take a while for you to do. Unless you've got like we make money off our podcast, but it's not a lot. Like we make like maybe $40 a month off of like ad shares and stuff. And that's enough to pay for movie tickets. Although we don't pay for movie tickets anymore. Yeah. But when we used to pay for movie tickets.
But you're using it as a marketing wing kind of for your brand and all the other stuff too.
And then also too, like now we still use it like, so we do our movies, like we do Netflix movies and stuff now obviously. But now the movie theaters are open, we'll probably start going back. But we were using like our ad money to pay for those like movies we had to pay extra. Yeah. Or if we were seeing the movie in IMAX, like because Celebration pays for our movie tickets, but not for IMAX. Right. So if we wanted to see some IMAX, we'd use our ad money to pay for that.
Yeah, it covers costs a little
bit. But when we first started doing it, we kept getting I'd say we kept getting irritated by we weren't making money because we didn't have a ton of traction yet, and a lot of our stuff was like. You guys should like start listening and subscribe and like, and if you do this, we'll start doing a Patreon. There was a lot of like 5 minutes at the end of each episode was like begging people.
Call to actions or whatever, yeah.
Finally, we had a meeting and I was just like, dude, let's just do the podcast for us. Let's just do it for us, not worry about it. Now it's great. Like people listen to us. We get on average, for each episode, we average between like 200 to 300 listens.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like depending on the episode.
Yeah, that's what people listening at home, that's a good number. That's about where I'm at as well. And like people, I think, feel, they kind of react as if it's low because they see like,
Joe Rogan's numbers,
and they see they see Facebook likes and YouTube video watches and things like that. But to have repetitive people coming back and listening is not an easy thing to do. Especially it's a long format thing.
Yeah,
it's not a 30-second video.
Yeah, it's like you got to dedicate. It's a drive or it's your work in your cubicle, and you have to listen to it.
Yeah.
But then the thing that we love most about it too is one, we're very passionate about it. We obviously love movies. And two, we just do it for us now. But now like our fans talk to us every week. Like we engage with them. We even transitioned now to where our Facebook page is not just we don't just upload. Like we put all movie news on our Facebook page now. And a lot of people go to our page to get their movie.
Yeah, it's like their outlet now.
Yeah. And so it's cool that like to watch it kind of expand like that. Yeah. And that's pretty much the same way my comedy career has been, or my career in general. Is it started off as just I was really passionate about starting comedy, and then everything else kind of fell in place. Granted, it was a lot of work. It didn't just fall in place. Like Kevin Hart. They kept calling Kevin Hart's rise to stardom meteoric, and the guy's been doing comedy for 30 years.
It's just because we didn't see the work.
It's not meteoric.
No, everyone listening, nobody in the public eye, honestly, nobody in comedy and acting and music and sports, everyone that's there has done the work.
Exactly.
People talk shit about Justin Bieber and Shawn Mendes and those people too. It's like they're there because they're good.
Justin Bieber's been around for a long time, and
he got a break by being on YouTube and getting 1 million views or whatever. But that's because it was good.
Also, it was at a time when people weren't getting 1 million views on YouTube.
Exactly.
Like not every day. Like every day, everybody's got 1 million fucking views now.
So what would you attribute your podcast followed that path? Your comedy, you're liking that to your comedy career as well. Would you liken that, or would you attribute that whole thing to passion and authentic intentions? Or?
I think I would like to say that that's like 90% of what it is, but it's not.
The bare foundational part is that you're funny.
Yes.
That's important.
That's actually not the most important part.
Okay.
In comedy, at least. I think, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, the 3 most important things in comedy in this order are who you know, how funny you are, and how passionate you are. No. Who you know, how passionate you are, and how funny you are. Funny is like the third thing, because there are a fuck ton of people on Netflix right now with specials that I don't think are very funny.
It's just specific. The range now is so great that you can be specific, have a very specific thing, and even if you get 1% of people, it might be good.
There was a guy who did a special with no crowd before the pandemic, like before it even happened. It was last year, and like it was on HBO, and it was like one guy, and I never watched it.
The Hispanic guy?
I think it was he Hispanic?
Object. It's like My Favorite Shapes or something.
No, I think my phone was dead, or else I'd look it up. But it was a different guy. It was a black guy.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what the name of the special was, but I didn't watch it. I don't really actually watch a lot of new stand-up, just because it's really easy to absorb stuff and not know that.
Yeah. So you want to stay pure and like your ideas only.
Exactly.
And if there is overlap, it's not because you copied it. It's because it happened.
It also helps that I talk about my personal self a lot. But it also, I still watch stand-up, but I'll watch like the big names because like I'm not going to accidentally absorb Dave Chappelle's material and not know that it's Dave Chappelle's material. But if I watch random person from Minnesota, I could forget that it was their stuff. So I don't watch a lot of it. But the who you know and passion, I think, are 80% of succeeding in comedy. And then being funny is like 20%.
Yeah.
There are there are very few times or rare times when it does line up that one funny. Bo Burnham's a good example of somebody who's very funny, who got discovered pretty much instantly. Like when he was 18, he got like his first Comedy Central special, and it was from YouTube. Yeah. So he's like literally the only example.
That's Bill Burnham.
Oh, sorry, Bo Burnham. Bo Burnham.
Oh, Bo Burnham.
Did I say Bo Burnham?
No, you might have said Bo. You said Bo Burnham.
Okay. Yeah. Bo Burnham was literally a meteoric rise. Like he was on YouTube in his attic, and the next year at a Comedy Central special.
He's playing songs.
Like he just playing songs on his keyboard in his attic. Yeah. And so like not everybody is like that. Most of the time, it's like you work for it. A decade at least.
And you haven't done it for a decade, have you?
I haven't. I'm one of the exceptions. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm very unique in my comedy style in this scene. Now I'm not saying that everybody talks about the same stuff, but I'm like the only black person who's like in a lot of shows. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people book me for shows because I'm like the safe black person to book. Like I'm the one that they know is funny. And I'm the one that isn't too black that they think. Because like I talk about really, really black things in my comedy, but it's very well done. So people don't realize how pro-black what I'm saying is until after the show.
I notice you write from a place of neutrality, kind of. So that you're. I try to do that, not as effectively, but you can't have your audience feeling like they're under attack, especially if you're playing a lot of white shows, which, let's face it, you are.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart's playing a lot of white shows, too.
Yep.
I mean, it's...
Not when he started, but now, definitely.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you kind of have to be cognizant of that, but yet you still are hitting on the important... Mm-hmm. Like, I loved your joke about... the white chick coming into the Starbucks and saying something about like, can I get a pumpkin spice latte? Is that too white and basic?
Yeah.
And then you come in and say like, hey, I'm black, motherfucker. Bring my KFC.
I love that show. That's my closer. Like I literally, it's one of my. I have 3 closers, but it's one of my closers, and it's one I've been doing for like only 3 years, 2 years maybe. But it's 100% true story.
Of course.
Every example I give that happens actually happened, and it blows my mind.
Well, people say the same thing to me, like that doesn't really happen. It's partially just the language. It's how you tell the story. It's writing, it's linguistics, and it's language and all of that. So that's an important part to you.
Well, that too. I don't think people understand how much of the stuff I say isn't embellished. Like a lot of comedy is very embellished, and some of my stuff is. But, I mean, I'll change small details. Like, there's a story I tell about me and my daughter getting into a car accident. Like, me hitting a deer.
I heard that one, too, yeah.
And the bit's very good. It talks about how she said to me, Dad, did you hit that deer? And I turn around and I say, daughter, that was a dumb fucking question. Of course I hit that deer. You're in the back seat and you're covered in glass. And like, that all happened, but I didn't say that's a dumb fucking question.
Of course not.
But everything else happened. Like, we hit the deer, kicked out the back windshield, she was covered in glass. She asked me if I hit the deer, and I said, that's a terrible question because you're literally covered in glass right now.
But did she really say that? She hopes you don't go to heaven?
She really did say that, yeah. So like, I tell these stories on stage, and people are like, man, there's no way that really, and I'm like, dude, 100%. Like, I may change like one word to make it a little funnier, but I don't know what it is about me, but I just attract the weirdest situation. Did I tell you the Ivanka Trump story? You're probably gonna want to keep this in. The other day, I was on my personal Facebook page, which is pretty popular, And I talk about politics a lot in the last couple of months on my personal page, but I'm very neutral. Like, I have my own political views, but I don't put them on any other people.
Right.
I do mention, like, obviously, like, who I do and don't support.
Of course.
But I'm never like, you shouldn't do this because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I should, but I don't. And it's mainly because I want my Facebook to be an inviting place for people to be able to have conversations with each other from both sides.
Right.
Like, I have conservative friends, I have liberal friends, I have
apathetic
third-party friends. Like, I have friends that don't give a shit. Like, I have, and when I say friends, I put in a lot of quotes. But like, I have people from all walks of life on my Facebook, and it's not a vacuum on there. And it's people talk to each other, and I keep it respectful. I don't really lead conversations in there. I just jump in and moderate every now and then because I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook.
Right.
I'll post something that'll be, this thing happened. What do you think of it? And then I'll go back and look and I'll have like 70 comments. I'll have to go through and make sure people aren't being dicks to
trolls
each other.
or anything. Yeah.
And so I would do that, and I didn't have a problem doing it. But my fiance doesn't like politics at all. Never voted before. Just registered this year for the first time. Granted, she's only 26, but she doesn't like politics. They make her angry. She hates them. So I try to talk about them around her. But when I'm on my phone doing phone stuff, and the only thing that's coming up is comments on my Facebook, I start talking to her about them. I have very thick skin. I don't take anything that anybody says to me that I don't know seriously at all. I don't care. Yeah. Like, it doesn't bother me. People don't believe me. It's like a genuine trait that I've somehow managed to get in my life.
That's helpful in comedy because you have to bomb on occasion.
Yeah, I don't bomb very often, but when I do, I don't let it get to me. And when a crowd heckles, talks, like, I'm able to interact with them and shut them down because I don't let things people say get to me.
Right.
So when I read people argue on my Facebook, it cracks me up because, one, it's just like, I'll post something about I wish people would just get along. I don't see why we need to argue about every single thing in the world. First comment will be an argument. Second comment will be something to argue with them about that. And then it'll be a whole argument. So then I'll jump in, I'll tell Rebecca, I'll be like, listen to this. And I think it's hilarious because I don't give a shit. But then she hears it and it stresses her the fuck out.
Yeah, right.
So then we finally had to come. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to post anything political on my Facebook personal page anymore. I'll just do it on my Twitter, maybe on my fan page, and then that's it. And that was like a compromise because we're engaged. Obviously, we make compromises in our relationship. And I was like, I think that'll be good. She's like, I love that. That's a great idea. That'll put less stress on me. So I said this on Sunday. Deleted every political thing on my Facebook, my personal page on Sunday. People were applauding this. They were like, dude, this is a great idea, Mike. We're really excited.
So brave.
Well, because my Facebook's generally a pretty positive place. I like to keep it positive because I'm a positive guy. So I like people to come to it for a little break. And so people were really excited. They're like, all right, cool. Back to the funny videos. So then Monday, it's her birthday. I got this great day planned for her. The morning we go to brunch. I give her another one of her gifts. I give her a nice massage, start the day, do some yoga. Then I'm like, all right, let's go to the cider mill. Pick some cider up, some donuts, get some pumpkins to car. We go up to Robinette's. It's a beautiful day. Nothing's going wrong. I walk into the place. I buy some donuts. I take them out. Oh, that's a great donut. I walk back out. There's 30 reporters there. And I'm just like, there's going to be a politician here. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, there's going to be a politician here. So I look at Rebecca, who I'm like, fuck. This is her birthday. We're here to take her mind off of all the politics. Yeah. So she's like, well, can we just go eat in the truck? And I'm like, that's totally fine, right? So we go sit in the truck, and a bunch of SUVs pull up and stuff. And then I can't see who it is because there's cameras everywhere. I asked one of the reporters too while we were there. I'm like, hey, who are you here for? And she jokingly says, oh, all these cameras are here for me, ha ha ha. I'm like, oh, I get it. Okay, you won't tell me because it's a politician. I know it. I go inside the Robinette's. I'm asking everybody there, who's about to? They're like, we have no idea. They just showed up. These reporters, they got shuttled in on buses and showed up there. We have no idea.
And they were supposed to be in town. Did you think of anyone? Did we even?
I didn't know who was in town that day.
I
didn't even look because I couldn't look up politics while I'm with Rebecca.
On your birthday.
Yeah, so I'm just like, fine, I'm eating these donuts, and then I'm just like, I gotta go in there and see who the fuck is in there. And she's like, I understand. I was like, cool. I go in there, it's fucking Ivanka Trump. And so
you had to say something.
And then what happened was, I had a very Harry Potter moment in there because everybody was whispering and it's the president's daughter, it's Ivanka Trump. And so I'm looking around, and I'm trying to ask him, who's buying? I'm like, oh, somebody really important. Who is it? Somebody really important. Whatever. I'm just gonna buy some kettle corn and get the fuck out of here. So I grab a bag of kettle corn. I put it on the counter. It's like a kid, an 18-something-year-old kid working behind the counter. I'm like, a lot of cameras, huh? And then he's just like, yep, a lot of cameras. I was like, do you know who's here? It's like, yeah, we just found out a couple minutes ago. Who's here? And he's like, the president's daughter. And then I was like, Ivanka Trump is here? And they're like, like all of her security, like immediately just looked over at me, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get out of here.
It's like, dude, you're in a public place.
Yeah, like what the fuck? I'm not allowed to say her name.
You're the one, you're the ones that are supposed to change for being in public, not vice versa.
She's not fucking Voldemort.
Did she buy the place?
She bought some donuts. But yeah, that was like that was yesterday, and then I went back to the car and I sat in the car, and she's like, well, who was it? I'm like, you do not want to know. And she's like, well, I kind of want to know. I'm like, you do not want to know. And then she's like, well, who is it? And I was like, it's Ivanka Trump. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me? And then she like went off, and she's like, I can't fucking get away from politics. I hate November. She's just like, and I was like, whoa, let's go do something else nice. And I took her to the chop house. She was fine after that.
Oh man, so
So that's what I mean, though.
Dude, you did a great job on her birthday. Wow, that's pretty. All of those things. You couldn't really control that idiot.
But I mean, like, so shit like that happens to me all the time. Weird people, random celebrity encounters, crazy situations.
Okay, is it because, do you really believe that you have a higher incidence rate of that? Or is it because you have an open perspective and you're taking, you know what I mean? You're seeing things, you're seeing more holistically what's going on, and a lot of people are just kind of tunnel vision, so they miss all this stuff going on. Do you know what I'm saying?
You know, so people don't know this about me at all. This will be a scoop. I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah. How does that manifest? How does that manifest for you?
How does it manifest in me?
Well, I mean, like, what is it? What shape does that take? What form does that take?
For me, it's very much my mentality is, I don't like negativity, obviously. I try my best to keep all negativity out of my life. I also believe in human beings as like a race of people. And I believe that we should be able to coexist healthily. Weird word to use. I think about this. I think about that episode of South Park where they find out that Earth was a TV show, and one of the first things they ask is like, why would you have a TV show about Earth? And the taco that poops ice cream, who's the producer, says, we have a planet that has black people, white people, Asians, dogs, cats, antelopes. You think the rest of the galaxy works like that?
Yeah, no shit.
And I love that idea that, like, yeah, this is the only place that's like that. This is the only place that we know of that even has life. Right. So why are we taking all this time to hate each other when we should be acknowledging how amazing it is that we're even here?
Right.
Also, I believe in universal impact on the way we live life, and I believe in spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
I also believe in listening to the universe. Like, it's been great for me the last couple of months because it makes for a very spontaneous life. But if an opportunity presents itself, I just take it. Or if, like, this is another weird thing. I don't know if this is explaining it at all, but like, if I try to go to a bar to get some food, and I drive there, and there's 3 different things that stop me from getting there, I won't go to that bar.
Yeah, they're like signs.
Yeah, I'm just like, no, the universe is telling me not to go here, so I'm not going to go here. Like, I go there, and there's like construction, so I got to take a detour, but then I get to the detour, and like a homeless guy's like cart breaks in the road, so then I got to turn around and go to a parking lot, but then as I get in the parking lot, a fucking semi gets stuck. So I'm like, guess I'm not going.
Yeah, dude.
Guess I'm not going.
Just being like aware and in tune with what's going on.
You got to start, not you, but like people need to start paying attention to their environment around them and their people around them, and then they'll start realizing that you're always in some sort of situation, some sort of crazy talkable situation.
Comical.
Always.
It's always funny.
There's always something going on.
And it's always funny because, like you said, the taco that poops ice cream said it best, but like, but like, it's absurd. The fact that we're here is absurd.
Yeah.
And to that end, why not look for the fun, positive part of it? And not only that, but why focus on this? Realistically, if you're listening right now, whoever wins the election is really, it's going to be a symbolic thing and all of that, but like the things going on directly around you are way more impactful than what happens there. Mm-hmm. And yet we've all got all of our, other than your fiance, most of us have so much of our mind spent on shit going on down there in Washington when local politics are crumbling. We have all sorts of issues here in Grand Rapids that could use some positive support. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. People are so preoccupied with trying to cancel Robinettes because somebody showed up. Yet Hartside Park is filled with homeless people in tents every single day. Dude, where are your priorities? Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, right there.
I don't understand. Every day I look out, like when I'm bored, I'll stand and look out the window, and like they do lead very interesting lives out there. But I look out there and I just think, I open my Facebook and I never see anybody talking about that. I never see anybody talking about anything that happens in their area. No. All anybody wants to talk about is what happens in D.C. with these 4 idiots that control really nothing that affects you on a daily basis.
Really not.
Unless you're like, one of these marginalized groups that like Trump is trying to like directly harm. Yeah. Like if you're like, if you're a white man, a white lower middle class man who lives in the Midwest America, you should not give a shit about what happens in Washington.
No.
Because it doesn't affect you at all.
No.
If you're like, a black lesbian who lives in Los Angeles, you should probably worry about politics because it directly affects you.
Right.
And so I don't understand these people who want to bitch and complain and say things. Donald Trump is our president. Bro, you live in a trailer in the middle of fucking Kentucky.
Yeah,
Donald Trump does not give a shit about you.
No.
So I don't get that. I mean, I get it. People are blind and cheap and brainwashed and listen to whatever everyone tells them.
You get it, but personally, it doesn't jive.
Personally, I'm just I don't understand why you want to do that. I post that thing I told you about the elephant or the Billie Holiday thing I posted. The first thing I posted was it was the first day I had promised to never post anything negative on my page again.
Tell that story.
The not promising I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So the first thing I posted, 8 a.m., was a colorized photo of Billie Holiday performing in the first integrated club in America. And I'm like, what better way to get out to a positive start, right?
How could you look at that negatively?
In my mind, I'm like, nobody
together.
In my mind, I'm like, nobody can find fault in this. This is perfect. First comment, not the second one, not the third, not 3 hours later. First comment, 5 minutes later was. Fuck, what was it? Damn, my phone's dead.
Didn't Marilyn Monroe help
No,
you get
that was later in the day. The first comment was, come on, Mike. Crap. Oh, no, the last comment, sorry, was, where's the integration? That was the last comment, in the picture. And one, it's a colorized photo, so the original photo was black and white, so people had to guess. And two, you could clearly see black people in the picture. And so I commented with just the Wikipedia for that club. I was just telling them here's the history of the club. Because the first line in the Wikipedia
known for integrating
well, it's blah 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 club. I can't remember what it's called. Blah blah club opened by yada 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 in New York City, 1938. America's first integrated club. Famously had Billie Holiday perform the first performance of the night, singing "Strange Fruit," which is a super song about lynchings and stuff. Yeah. And so I just put that on there, and I'm just okay, here, this will tell you this is integrated. This will tell you this is the first. Here's your information. Here's your facts. Read those facts, and then and then he sent me a private message. He's like, I ain't seen any blacks in that picture, and he's a black guy. Sent me a message that says, I didn't see any black people in that picture. So then I just circled the black people in the picture. I'm like, they're right there, dude. What are you talking about? And he's just like, oh, well, they had straight hair, so I must have assumed. I'm like, it's the 30s, dude. Every black person had perms because they were trying to be like white people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was.
You couldn't walk around with your natural hair back then. It's easily.
In my mind, I'm like, this is disappointing because you're black for one thing, and you could have just figured that out by googling why this picture has why these white people have straight hair or why blah blah. Or I've read Malcolm X. There was a whole point in his life where he was wearing zoot suits and fucking had his hair permed. There's 3 chapters in the book where he describes in detail how much it hurt because getting perms back then wasn't pleasurable.
Right.
But I only knew that okay, these must be black people because I know the history of that time period.
Right.
Because I educated myself on it years ago.
Right.
And it's just disappointing that everybody on the internet, not everybody, but we'll say 98% of people on the internet will just react before even trying to learn or figure out something. And so when I post the Billie Holiday thing, they see it and the first thing they think of is, how can I pick this apart? Instead of I just want to appreciate that. Because then the next thing somebody says was, the thing somebody said before that was, didn't Marilyn Monroe help her get into this club? And then 2 things crossed my mind that I could have said but didn't. One, do you know what a white savior is? And 2, why is this the first question you ask? But I'm a positive guy now. I'm coming from a place of good things, and so I'll take this chance to educate them. And I just said to them, no, period.
Right.
Marilyn Monroe helped Ella Fitzgerald, this is Billie Holiday. Which I feel gets my point across. I feel it shows you that
you're clearly delineating the two.
Yeah.
They're both black singers, but they're different people.
And then he apologized and said, my apologies. And then he sent me a message. And it was I'm really sorry about saying that. I didn't know. Blah, blah, blah. And my first thought is why are you apologizing to me about? I'm not Billie Holiday. You didn't offend me. Go find her grave somewhere.
So let's resolve this right now. As a black man, do you feel it's incumbent upon you to answer or to accept the apologies of whites for everything that the whites have ever perpetrated on blacks?
No, and white people need to stop doing it. They need to stop. And I'm in so many black people groups on Facebook and stuff like that. And it's one thing that none of us like it. We don't like it. Stop doing it. There's no reason for it.
Not to mention the white people that are apologizing to you aren't the ones that perpetrated it either.
I know. It'd be if I went to a white person and was just hey man, what the fuck? Hey, I'm really sorry about the DC snipers. What the fuck?
I'm sorry about Nicole Brown Smith. Or Nicole,
What the fuck am I supposed to do? I'm sorry about fucking OJ. My bad, dude. Like,
I would appreciate that. If I would. Maybe somebody someday could apologize.
It's funny too. I like to tell this joke in black and white rooms because it gets different reactions in both rooms, and like it's a joke. It's a joke about how I saw a meme once that said, if you can find someone who can cook for you, marry him, right? And then my reply to that is like, why would you base marriage off of one like defining trait? Like one good quality doesn't dictate a good person. I mean, O.J. Simpson was one of the best running backs of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a great husband.
Not the best husband, no.
And I tell that joke and everybody always laughs. Yeah. And then the caveat at the end I always say is, it's been long enough. We can admit he did that shit. And then like, I'll say it in a white room and it'll be like, thank God! And in the black room it'll be like, yeah, we knew.
Yeah, I do feel like there are some holdouts though, right? There are some holdouts that believe it's.
Here's what I think. I think that O.J. Simpson did it. But I also think that the police tried to frame him for it and did a bad job.
They could have just used the regular facts instead of trying to frame it.
Instead they manufactured evidence like an idiot.
I mean, what's his nuts coming out and dropping the N-word and stuff on recording?
Johnny Cochran?
Didn't help. Well, the white cop dude.
Yeah.
His name, yeah.
I just love Johnny Cochran's fucking glove his glove argument.
If the glove fits, you must acquit.
If the gloves fit, you must acquit. That shit was a headline. like that's how you fucking win a court case. You get everybody saying your goddamn motto that proves that your client is innocent.
It's pretty revolutionary now, right? Back then, because now it's like everything has been condensed. Everything is condensed now to like whatever it can be memorable, hashtagable, and all that other stuff.
Makes sense with what we have. When I first started doing research into like what people like, 8 or 9 years ago, we had 8-second attention spans, and now it's down to like 6.5, and that's just in 8 years. It's like microevolution.
Yeah, I know.
Speaking of microevolution, another tangent.
Yeah.
We go back to the main topic. Did you hear that people are being born without wisdom teeth now?
Finally. I wish it were me. I think I'm dealing with that right now.
I haven't yet. Thank God, but
I had a bunch of teeth pulled when I was a kid for braces. Like I had 8 permanent teeth pulled in a single situation.
Well, they're like, you're a kid, you'll get over it. You'll remember.
I don't know what they were thinking, but first off, I had that big of teeth that I had 8 more of these motherfuckers in here. Yeah. So now it's already a tight fit. Now I have wisdom teeth coming in, which are poorly named. I guess it's because they come in late, I guess.
Yeah.
But thank God we're finally getting... The next thing will be maybe boys can stop having nipples. You know? Why do we have these things?
Man, that is a really good question.
I think it's because of how we develop. But I mean, if we can drop wisdom teeth, let's get rid of nipples.
If dead, I would ask that right now on my Facebook. I'm going to write that down. Why do boys have nipples? It's a really good question.
It's a loaded one for me because during puberty, my nipples got huge. I was all self-conscious about them. It's like...
I used to have an Audi belly button when I was a kid.
That's a rare thing. I recently learned that's only like 8% of the world population is
Seriously?
Audis, yeah.
Huh. Well, it's not an Audi anymore. It's weird.
Is that because you got heavier?
No, it went in when I turned like 14 or 15. It was weird. I went through puberty and then fucking my...
Balls dropped?
Belly button goes...
There's a lot. Yeah, it's like tied with a string. Yeah.
You get an Audi. Wait, I got an Audi. It's fine. I gotta write that down too.
Okay, so tonight, I'm excited because right now we're at your office. It's the middle of the day, but tonight you're hitting the open mic circuit again for the first time in a long time. You kind of hung up that. So talk about your evolution before we get into that. Talk about your evolution from guy that was just calling, doing whatever you could to get in whatever room you could, to now where you're. What does your day-to-day look like these days?
Well, so when I first started, it was very much like I would do a lot of open mics. Like, when you first start doing comedy, you do like 3 or 4 a week for like 2 years. And so I was doing a lot of open mics, and it was fine. Like, I was getting better and getting good, and I was actually doing what you're supposed to do is like, practice your material over and over and over again. And then once I started doing like paid work, I started trying out new material during shows. So like, if I'm doing a 30-minute set and the show's going really well after like 15 minutes, I'll like throw a new joke in.
Yeah.
And so I got to, a lot of pros do that, and it kind of becomes a crutch because you don't really know if that material is funny.
They're gonna say at that point they're gonna laugh at whatever you say.
Exactly. Yeah. If you've got them already, like it doesn't matter what the fuck you say, like they're gonna start laughing. But when you do a straight open mic, is it dying or?
Probably. That's okay. I have this one. That's fine.
When you do a straight open mic, the crowd is not already on your side. So you do know if the material is good. Like, it's a very good barometer. Yeah. I stopped going to other ones because I ran my own one for so long. So I didn't need to go to other ones. Like, every Monday I had a venue to go to try out the material.
Right.
So I didn't go to travel a lot to do open mics. Plus, I was also just too busy doing paid work that I didn't have time to travel. And most open mics are like, what I'm supposed to be getting paid.
Yeah, right.
I stopped running open mics. I just don't like it anymore. It's just not fun for me. Like,
you were hosting and you had to announce everyone coming up and all that
yeah,
stuff.
and like you have to do material and like you have to control the show, and like if the show's going bad, you gotta like go up and do more jokes to get it back on its feet. Also, being an open mic comedian host, you sit through so much bad comedy. Like, an unbearable amount of just really bad comedy.
What is it? Just people? Some people don't get how to tell a story and like put the stakes into it and build the suspense and what you know.
Most comics aren't storytellers. Most comics just tell jokes.
Yeah, it's no good for.
But the problem is those jokes aren't good, and open mics are designed for you to practice. So when I'm there every week, I hear these people do the same jokes over and over, which you're supposed to do. You're supposed to repeat them. But I just got sick of hearing them. Yeah. And then every now and then, you get a comic who you're like, fuck, this person's really talented. Let me book them on my paid shows now. Right. Which is why I ran the show for so long.
Yeah, so it's really just a project sourcing opportunity.
Yeah. And like, obviously, like I said, like it was part of my income too. Like I got paid to do the show. It was a great place to practice. Now I'm pivoting. I still do stand up. Like I'm recording an album next month, and like I'll still, if clubs ever open again, I'll start traveling again. But right now I don't do stand up, so I'm not doing open mics. Right. Only what I'm doing is I'm doing a bunch to prepare for my album recording next month, and then I don't know how much stand up I'm actually going to be doing after that. Mainly because I have like 2 other very big projects that I'm working on. One project, which I'm supposed to hear about like within the next day or 2, is like huge, like really like life-changing kind of huge. And so everything is like on hold until I hear about that. Yeah. Then after I hear about that, then I'll like move forward with what's going on the rest of my career. But right now it's like I've been making videos, I make, YouTube content, I make TikTok videos, I have my Twitter, my Instagram, my podcast, my fan page, my page Mike's Chef Special, which is I sell food out of my kitchen once a week because why not? You're
into food. You're into food and fitness.
I'm very good at cooking too. Yeah. And so like I've already this will be my 3rd week operating. My first week I sold homemade lasagna. This past week I sold roasted. Oh, the first week I made chili, which I've been perfecting that recipe for like 10 years.
That's great for the time of year and all that too.
Oh my god, it sold out so fast. Yeah. The next week I did lasagna, full pan lasagna, sold slices of that. This past week, yesterday, I just did roasted butternut squash.
Dude, you're so jack of all trades.
Oh my god, I like making money on things I'm good at. Yeah. So all those things, I decided I cannot run open mic. Period. Like I don't have time. And also with the new show that's coming on Mondays, like I don't need it to do it anymore. Also, I've passed on all my knowledge to like all the new people. Like I ran MC showcase like classes. I've given out free advice to literally every comic who asks for it. And I said I wasn't going to quit Garage Bar until I felt like the Garage Bar, this sounds really selfish, but nobody else was trying to like make the scene like really good. Yeah. Before a couple of years ago, like it was very much like a lot of the comics who were like pros didn't do open mics and wouldn't even talk to open micers. And it was the idea of like, we're better than them. Yeah. Like, they're open micers. I don't talk to open micers. Which
is a little bit pervasive in comedy.
It's really pervasive in comedy, and I decided to stop it.
Good for you.
For me, and I think I'm getting chills right now because I'm just now realizing this as I'm saying it out loud. I think I've changed the scene for the better because I was the one professional who would talk to everybody and give people chances and give them shows and pay them money and give them advice and just be nice to them.
Dude, yeah, it's fostering.
And so now the scene is literally run. Everybody who has shows now is all new comics. They're all super welcoming. They're all young. The scene is really tight knit. Like it's not clicked up. Damn.
Good for you. Dude, that's really good. I know you're halfway a little bit joking, but you deserve a pat on the back on that, dude. That's huge because the whole fostering, getting in front of a bunch of people that you don't know and making them laugh is already hard enough. Yeah. Without being afraid of what the pro is going to say when you leave the stage or whatever. Yeah. So like someone that's going to be a ambassador, if you will, for a local scene is important. It's necessary.
Yeah.
You're like the Mitzi. You're the Mitzi Shore of Grand Rapids.
Well, I noticed when like people started starting new shows and they all followed my format. Like they all hosted the same way I host, which they put their own spin on it, but they follow the same talking points. They format the show the same. They book the show the same. I love it. Like, I love the fact that it's like that because I think it's the best way to do comedy shows.
Or you wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have done it because, like, I don't like being at those. So I made it so that I would enjoy it the most. And the way I did it was I made shorter lineups. I gave comics less time to have more go-up spots, which encourages comics to just show up to the room, which wasn't my idea. Like, that was other shows have already done that.
Yeah. But
the idea of having I only had 7 comics on my lineup. An average open mic was 10 comics before me.
So then you gave them more time, or you took more time to MC, or what?
So I gave them the same amount of time, but I made the show shorter. So the crowd by the end of the show wasn't bored, tired, or sick of comedy. By the end of a 10-person show, it's like 2 hours later, and comedy kind of ends in an hour and a half. Like, people they're done.
Right.
And I noticed that as I was going to more mics, and so when I was like, if I ever start a show, it's not going to be 2 fucking hours.
Yeah, leave them wanting more as opposed to the opposite.
And I always said, that's one thing I say to all my new comics, I'm like, always leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
James is using the fucking rift. I always say leave them wanting more, and so when I made my own show, it's like, I only want 7 comics, I'll have 2 go-up spots, and everybody sticks to their time. My show always starts on time, like, all these rules, and then when I decided to put on an MC class because all these comics were asking me for advice. And I was like, I'll just do a class. So I put it on. I didn't charge anything for it. It was packed. Every comedian in Grand Rapids was there. They had their notepads out. They took their notes. I gave out 2 hours of advice for fucking free, mainly because I was just like, the scene needs to change.
Yeah.
And now all these shows are like run like pretty smoothly.
Dude, yeah.
The scene is really inviting and really inclusive. I was a huge advocate for all my pro shows are always, if there's 4 comics, it's always 1 male person of color, 1 female person of color, 1 white woman, and 1 white man. Every show. And there's always at least like 1 LGBTQ comic.
Yeah, so there's good representation, yeah.
And now every show is like that in our area. If you look at posters of shows all across Michigan, though, not like that.
No, you have to actively try it. You have to actively work to do that, though.
It's hard. Like I've now got to the point now where I go into I go on posters if I see them, and like everybody who knows comedy in Michigan knows who I am. It sounds arrogant, but like it's true.
Yeah.
Because
it's a pretty small community.
Yeah, it's a small community. I've been around long enough, and like I know my voice carries, so like I'll jump on a thread that's just all white guys in a poster, and I'll just say no female comics in your city, and then like people start commenting on it, and they'll be like, well, what the fuck's the deal? Why are there no female comics?
Right.
And like I think it's important to do that.
Yeah.
And I started looking at the lineups of the shows that are being produced here, and it's fucking black, white, Hispanic, gay, straight, male, female. The Grand Rapids comedy scene is so fucking inclusive.
Yeah.
I love that. And like Erin Betka's another woman who, another person who used to work for Comedy Project, now has their own endeavors they've been reaching out on, but they organize a list of how safe women feel in comedy in Grand Rapids. And it's a very extensive like survey that says like I think it was like 65% of like female performers in Grand Rapids feel comfortable performing, which is high for entertainment.
Yeah.
And like they took it upon themselves to make that list, and like so Grand Rapids has like literally a resource where you can avoid shitty bookers and like racist, misogynistic things like that. And we have a scene where every booker pretty much is like an inclusive, relatable person. So like we have a very healthy comedy scene here now, and
You're a big part of that though.
A lot of it is like blocks that I put down years ago when I first started doing my shows. Yeah. Like I've publicly banned comics who have made like women uncomfortable. Like gone into there's like MCN, Michigan Comics Network, which is a closed group of 3,000 comedians that all live in Michigan.
Yeah.
And I had a guy who came in and, he was just a guy who had a bad record for being like very
creepy
towards
a creep.
women.
Yeah.
And it was affecting lineups. Like women wouldn't go on shows. And so I went in MCN one day because I couldn't get any women to sign up for my shows. This was like 3 years ago or something. I went on MCN and I'm like, what do I have to do to get women to sign up for my shows? And it was a very long post. It's like, we know there's female comedians out there. We know you want to work. I don't understand why nobody's signing up. Because I put my announcement, I used to book, or I would just say, I'm now booking for October, sending requests. And no women would request.
So now you have to specifically
booked.
say women for October.
No, I stopped saying that because I want to get to a point where we don't have to say, I need women for this
It should be
month.
understood, yeah.
So what I did was I said, I put a poll out. I was like, what would make women feel more comfortable coming to shows? And like everybody was like, we need to know that people who are creepy aren't going to be there. And like they named one person in particular. There's one guy in the city who was really, really, really bad about it. And he was still being allowed on shows. I was still friends with him, but I had purposely avoided ever trying to hear anything about him. Because like he was my friend, so I was like, I don't want to hear what the fuck's going on.
Confirmation bias. I just did my show on that yesterday. Yeah, you only want to hear the facts that align with what is easy for you.
Exactly. So I closed my ears to hearing about what happened until one day a guy friend of mine told me that this guy did something to him. So then I was like, shit, because like I wasn't trying to hear it, but like
it just came. You were protecting it.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about protecting because I didn't think he was gonna say something like that.
Yeah.
And so then I started asking around to other guys. I was like, does this guy do this to you guys too? And they're like, yeah, like he's done it to me like before.
And then now you know.
And so I'm like, okay, so like this isn't just like an isolated incident. And so then I started asking like a bunch of women who like people or how I heard have accused him of these things. So I started asking them. I'm like, hey, if you don't want to answer, that's feel free. But like, what has happened? And they like everyone was like, this is what happened. So I went on MCN the next day, and I was like, I'm officially announcing that this person will no longer be allowed to perform at any show I produce for the end of time. Like I was like, this shouldn't be tolerated. I went on a really long speech about how I was failing people as a producer by having them on. Yeah. Like I think that all show bookers are failing people by having them on like that. And then he got banned from every show in Michigan that day. And so now it's got to the point where now, and this was before like the Me Too movement, so like cancel culture wasn't really like a thing at the time.
Yeah.
And so now people get banned. Like people get blackballed from shows who like do anything inappropriate. Right. And so it's become a safer scene. And again, I'm not taking full credit for it, but I was definitely the first person to vocally be like, okay, I'm taking a stance on this thing. Yeah. And I think it's because I don't care about backlash and like everybody else does. And now I'm at a point where backlash doesn't really matter to me. Like it doesn't really affect me too much.
It's because your intentions are there, right? Like I think the people that fear backlash the most are the ones that kind of feel like they're guilty of something a little bit.
Exactly.
I had a coworker once tell me like, man, it sure is hard to be a man right now. And I said, really? I said, really? I said, Greg, when you were in college, did you like grab girls inappropriately and shit like that? Well, no. Okay, then I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Right.
That.
And then also, anytime a white guy complains about being a white guy, I just remind them that they're a white guy.
You'll hear from me. Did you hear Bill Burr? You heard Bill Burr's thing on SNL about white women?
Dude, every black person that I know shared that monologue.
And it's look, he's married to a black woman, right? So he can like he can get away with it a little bit better, but it was still fucking hilarious.
Dude, I love because I've said it on stage and in videos about like these woke white women who are like speaking for black people, and I'm just like, that's not cool. But I'm like glad a white guy said that because I've been saying it and we've all been saying it, but nobody's listened to us.
Right.
But Bill Burr was on national television and was like, sit down with us and take your talking to like the rest of us.
You pulled your ugboot over the line of racial injustice.
I was watching that monologue just like, this is the greatest monologue I've ever seen. It was so fucking good. Oh, I'm probably never going to get booked here again.
Okay, so tonight I'm going to see you. You're back in the open mic scene because you're just doing it as a favor.
That's the actual question.
Because I want to get to the point where I lead us into me playing a clip from tonight. You know what I'm saying? I want there to be kind of like an organic transition into that. So let's get back on track a little bit because we're running on runtime, and I want to make sure this is a concise one. Tonight, you are back in the open mic scene, although you've taken a vacation from those. You've been retired from that for a minute. Yeah. Are you hosting tonight, or are you just performing?
So I retired from hosting open mics. I will still use open mics to practice, but since there's not many shows, it's sparing. Right. But I've got an album recording next month. The date has not been hammered down yet, but it's the end of November, so I've obviously got to get, not rusty. So tonight I'll be at River North. Why do you want to say Riverfront? River North Public House at 8 o'clock to perform. I got all new stuff. We'll see how it goes, right?
That's dope. Yeah. So if it go, I'm not going to say if it's going to go well, but you are sampling new material, piloting new material. So in your head, do you already have your 60 minutes done for your album coming out in November, or is there a chance that this stuff will still squeeze in there?
So the album is going to be titled "Retiring Before I Made It," and it's essentially just going to be the greatest hits of the last 4 years.
Okay, yeah.
Because the last 4 years is when I've been professional. Granted, there is one joke that I still do that's from the first night I did comedy, but it's pretty much just all of my best stuff, which fits into an hour. Well, it doesn't fit into an hour, but there's an hour's worth of it, of my best stuff that I'm going to put on there. And there are two things that I'm doing tonight that I think might end up in it, just because they are. Well, one of the things is like a very like life-changing thing that happened, or it's involved in life-changing things, so it might actually be involved. Yeah. But for the most stuff, this stuff will be stuff, everything that I put on this new album, I'll never tell again.
Oh, nice.
So like once that stuff's done, like those jokes are gone.
Time capsule kind of
thing. Yeah. So then these things I'm doing tonight, those will be part of whatever my next album will be. Yeah. So now that I'm talking out loud, they probably won't be on the album.
That's kind of scary though, because this stuff work. You know that what you're putting on the 60-minute album, greatest hits, if you will, works. Is it scary?
Not really. Only because I don't write comedy the way most people write comedy. Most people write comedy by literally locking themselves in a room for like 2 hours a day and then forcing themselves to write stuff. That's not how I do it, which would be awful. I can't do that. I acknowledge that most people can. but I don't like writing for one thing, and I just don't have the patience to sit there. Also, my stories are so organic and they evolve as I tell them that I don't like to be strapped to.
And they're happening around. They're stories based on stuff actually happening to you on a daily basis too. So.
Exactly. I never really run out of material because I'm always doing stuff. Whereas most comics they don't do a lot of things, so they find it hard to like keep creating new content. Whereas like if every day I'm doing something completely different than I did yesterday, so I've always got new stories. The stuff I'm going to tell tonight all happened in the last 2 weeks.
Well, that's the beauty of that's another benefit of having an office like this too, is it does force you out of your place.
Yeah.
Even if it's only from your car to here.
Exactly.
You're seeing a different perspective.
But I mean, I go to lunch all the time. Like I'll walk around downtown and shit, so I always see a bunch of weird. Shit.
Everything's funny, right? There's humor to everything.
So yeah, once this album's done, in the bag, pushed out, all those jokes will be on that album forever, and then I'll get a whole new set of jokes. It sucks because I do like some of those jokes. I mean, I love all of them, but some of them are like my babies, and like it does suck to not be able to tell them again.
Yeah.
But I'm sure one day some fan who's been to my show before will be like, "No, do the Morgan Freeman bit," and then I'll be like, "All right, bye."
Is that one of your 67 impersonations?
Morgan Freeman? Well, yes, it is. Of course, it's one of those impersonations I can do. There's times when I need to instruct people on how to do things correctly, and what I do is I slow down my cadence and drop it down a few octaves and put a little wisdom in it.
That's pretty fucking good.
And also that joke it's a very perfect example of the way I stay neutral while talking about black issues, because the Morgan Freeman impression is involved in an entire closing bit that's all about police brutality.
Yeah, but it's not you, it's Morgan talking. It's kind of like Morgan talking. It
Well,
kind of gives you like its distance from it all.
The joke is great. It's like, honestly, it's one of the jokes it's probably the most proud of joke I've ever written.
Are you allowed to tell it now?
It's my joke, I do whatever I want.
Well, I mean, does it fit your own rules of telling? Would you tell it on the
Oh yeah,
podcast?
I'll tell it.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, it's so. So I'm 34 years old, and like the older I get, the more I start thinking about death. Mainly because I hang out with white people a lot, but I start thinking about death a lot. And then people usually go, "Oh," I'm like, "Come on, guys, you know you think about death all the time."
Yeah, I'm the one talking about it. You're all thinking.
So I like to think about death, but I also like to think about what kind of legacy I'm leaving behind after I die. Like, if I were to die today, what kind of legacy? Who would remember Mike Logan? You know. So I think to myself, I got to do something drastic, something really life-altering, so I can be remembered till the end of time. And so I figured I'm going to solve police brutality. That's what I'll do. Perfect. And then when I tell that joke, every time, no matter what room I'm in, silence. And then I say, "That's the response I expected." And then people usually laugh at that. And then I say, you think about police brutality, right? The problem that we have with police brutality is not, all police are bad. We know that's not a fact. There's a lot of bad police officers, and there's bad eggs, like in any group of people. Our problem is that the people who are bad aren't being brought to justice. And I know why they're not being brought to justice. It's because when a cop kills an unarmed black person somewhere in America, it's somebody no one's ever heard of from some city no one's ever been to. So there's not enough public outrage for there to be any kind of justice. Right. So what we need is for the police to step their game up. And what we need is for them to kill Morgan Freeman.
Of course. Naturally.
And then people react like you did, and then I usually say, that reaction is exactly why. Because everybody loves Morgan Freeman. Young, old, black, white, man, woman, you love Morgan Freeman, and if he were killed by the police, there would be justice later that night. It'd be instant. And then it'd be worse because as he lay on the ground dying, he'd say something really poetic that would make it even worse. Like, the cops would be like, "Put your hands up!" As I lay here breathing my last breath, I think to myself, I wonder if the birds will sing in the morning. It's like, oh my God, they just killed Morgan Freeman. # justice for Morgan.
It's hilarious, dude.
That's a joke. But I love that joke because, one, it talks heavily about police brutality. It talks about the problem with why police brutality hasn't been addressed. Yeah. And you get to hear my great Morgan Freeman impression.
Yeah, dude, honestly, your Morgan Freeman impersonation during that little soliloquy was more impressive to me than the first time, and it was good the first time.
Yeah. It's funny. I had a guy come to me after a show in Virginia after the show, and I closed with that joke. And people were like, buying stuff and like asking for autographs. And this guy walks up and he's like, "Hey, I'm a cop. I can make that happen." And I was like, "Whoa!"
I've been looking to help me one of those.
Like, "Hey, buddy, that's a joke. We're telling jokes here tonight."
Dude, I'm so grateful you sat down with me. I'm also just inspired by the fact that this is happening in Grand Rapids. I'm interested in joining the comedy scene, and I've always been afraid, man. I've just, like, you always hear about, there's all these gatekeepers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of me kind of just avoided it as a result of that. Mm-hmm. But now I kind of have a renewed faith that I can make it happen.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, there's only 2 shows running right now, and if you ever want to get in any of them,
yeah,
like, I can get you in whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
So, but
I got to work on an actual stand-up set, though. Like, I got to figure out how to get into it.
Yeah, that is the hard part. Like, I would recommend, if you already tell stories that are funny, I would recommend just finding your funniest story, and the first time you do comedy, just doing that and seeing how that feels.
Okay.
Because then you'll find out if you want to tell stories, if you want to tell jokes, or because I'll tell you right now, joke writing is so much harder than writing stories.
Yeah.
Like, so much. All you have to do to write a story is just go experience something, right. And then you'll always remember it because it's just there.
It's real, yeah.
Like, people ask why I don't write anything. It's like, well, because all my stories are like things that happen to me. I don't have to write it down. Right. But like, if you're Mitch Hedberg. You named Mitch Hedberg as your number one.
He's the shit. Yeah.
That guy obviously was on a lot of drugs, but
so many jokes,
wrote
though, dude.
So many jokes, like. In an hour special, that guy probably told like 100 and something jokes. And I'm just like, how the fuck can you write that many jokes? Granted, they're not all hits, but like, that's a lot of jokes.
No, they're not all hits. But
there's a performance where he went on Conan and did like 5 minutes. And apparently the story behind it's even better than the actual performance, because the performance kind of didn't land well. Because Mitch Hedberg is very niche, and like Conan's audience obviously is not into niche comedy. Like, there's a very wide-ranging audience. Right. But he went out and did his normal shit, which is hilarious to me. And the crowd kind of do crickets. And then they found out that apparently Conan wasn't even sure he was going to show up, because he didn't show up to the studio until like 10 minutes before he was supposed to go on.
Oh, so he's fucked up.
Because he's fucked up. I have a lot of friends who work with Mitch, and they all say, like, dude, if you could get him on stage, it was an accomplishment.
Did they say he was a nice guy? I heard he was nice.
He was very nice.
Yeah.
Apparently he was like the nicest guy in comedy. But he was just also really addicted to drugs.
I think I read something that, I think it was Jim, I think he took Jim Gaffigan bowling or something.
That makes sense.
And he was like talking mad shit about being a good bowler, and then he got up there and he rolled like a 13 on 10 frames. Like, he really got 13. He's horrible. Mitch Hedberg's a horrible bowler.
That's funny.
But so I was like, oh, cool. That's another good thing I like about that guy. Yeah, dude, I mean, I think, I don't know. I want to be. I love the energy. I think it's clear that things are happening. Whatever the big news is coming tomorrow, I'll make it happen, dude. Right? Don't you have big news tomorrow?
I'm not announcing it tomorrow. I'm waiting to hear from them either today or tomorrow.
So that's big, though. Whatever.
It's big if it happens.
Well, if it doesn't happen, it's big.
If it doesn't happen, I'll probably talk about it, and just to let people know it happened, because it was huge. But
yeah. I mean, there's no matter what the outcome is, though, you're gonna be able to grow from it. That's for sure.
I mean, I learned a lot from it. And it definitely changed my perspective on my career. Because here's a little nugget for the people that you're gonna want to keep in. Despite like my outwardly confident exterior, which I am very confident and I know like what I bring to situations. Yeah. I've always doubted that anybody appreciates the work I do in this city. Always, like from day one. And it wasn't until this thing that just happened that I was like, oh shit. And then after that happened, I started to really realize, like, I started actually engaging with people and like asking them what they thought of me. Yeah. And started to realize that people do support what I do and do believe in what I do. And then Reddit's also been a big help for me, because like everybody in the Reddit community in Grand Rapids, towards me at least, is very like nice and welcome and open, and they love what I'm doing. So yeah. I'm doing something right, I think. So I'm just gonna keep doing that.
Dude, definitely, dude. I think your intentions are there. Your energy's good. You're positive. What more can you ask for?
Trump out of the White House.
Thank you so much, Mike, for stopping into the attic, or rather for having me stop into your office. But nonetheless, what a guy, what a comedian, what a future. In fact, after we closed down the interview on Wednesday, I ultimately followed Mike up to River North Public House here on Plainfield in North Grand Rapids, where he was a featured comic on their regular Wednesday night comedy night, something that Mike was very involved with setting up, and now he's kind of stepping away from. It was really interesting for me to see how Mike translated some of the stories we discussed in the podcast earlier in the day, how that kind of got converted into an actual comedy set. Check him out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. He's the Ice Cold Comedian. He's Mike Logan. Peace out, y'all.
Hi, hello. Hello? Hi, how's it going? Hello? People who don't want to be talked to, hi? Well, that half does, right? It's not this half. Right, that guy right there. Going like, you don't want to be talked to, do you? I can see it in your eyes. Not you. No, glasses guy who looked back at you when I said it was him. Yeah. I was watching you from over there, man. You were like, don't fucking talk to me, don't fucking talk to me. Hey, what do you guys play? Whatever we want to, get the fuck out of here. Don't fucking talk to me. That's it, I had to get that out of my system. Thank you. My 1 year anniversary with my fiance is Saturday. Some of you may be doing some math and being like, So I've been with my fiance for like a year, literally. Like I met her a year ago, and we're gonna be married next year because true love's a crazy thing, right? And I found that in this relationship, which I feel like is like the first time I've ever actually been in love. Like before, like you say, I love you, but like if that person gets like, if they break up with you, you're like, I guess I'll be sad for a week. Then like you're probably not in love with them, right? So I figured with this person, I'm in love with this person. I love her a lot. I didn't realize that when you're actually in love with somebody, though, it does actually take like a lot of work to keep the relationship like healthy and stuff. I didn't know. I was like a jackass guy in relationships. Because I was like, if I gotta work it all, I'm fucking out. Peace. And that's what I did. I did it a lot to a lot of people. I was like, I don't want to work on this shit. Let me get the fuck out of here. And I was really excited when I met my current fiance because I wanted to work on it, you know what I mean? Like some shit happened, and I'd be like, no, hold up, let's figure this shit out. Whoa, hey! Good job, Mike, all right. But the problem comes when you're like a big, fat, gigantic whorebag for your whole life, and then you decide to settle down. Everybody who you've ever been a whorebag with wants you to fail. Like, bad. It's really sad. I get it, like I totally get it. Like I was a dick, it makes total sense you wouldn't want to see me be happy, I get it. But it sucks, but I've been working on it and it's been going really well. But every time we fucking fix one problem, a new problem crops up. Every time. And anybody who is in a healthy relationship knows that's the truth. There's always gonna be something you gotta figure out. You just gotta work through it. Our first big problem was all of my exes. That was my first big problem with my current fiance. Like all of my exes were harassing me every day, telling me I'm a piece of shit, I'm horrible, telling her that I'm a horrible person, like just trying their best to just make sure we don't succeed. And finally, I reconciled with all of my exes. It was a lot of work. I reconciled with all of them. It was fucking great. I felt so good afterward. I don't have anybody who hates me anymore. Any ex-girlfriends who hate me anymore. I was really excited about it. But then another problem cropped up. This next problem was politics. That was the next problem that cropped up. Because I am a very open person on social media for some things. I'm not open about my private life, but I speak my mind on there all the time. And the last month, what do you think I've been talking about? Politics, right? My fiance hates politics, so much so that she's 26 years old and has never voted. She is registered this year, though. I don't know why, probably because I yell at her every day. So politics, my Facebook every day was people talking about politics on my posts, which I don't have a problem with. My Facebook is very open to everybody. I'm like, everybody from every walk of life, come on here, let's talk about politics. And I also have thick skin. So it doesn't matter to me what the hell gets said on Facebook. People can be arguing all day long on my Facebook, and I could not care less. It never affects me, doesn't make me angry. In fact, it makes me laugh. Problem is, I try to share these funny stories with my fiance, and then she wants to fucking murder me every time. I'm like, hey, listen to this funny thing someone said about Joe Biden. Get the fuck out of here! So this week has been our anniversary week. It's been really nice. We've been doing really nice things to each other for each other all week. Maybe Carl. And one of the things I promised at the beginning of the week to her, I said, okay, here's my anniversary gift to you. I will never post anything political on my personal Facebook page ever again. That's my gift to her. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, I'm dead serious. Granted, I've got Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube channel, and a Facebook fan page. But my personal page, website coming soon. My personal page, no political stuff. First day, I woke up, I'm like, this is good. I'm gonna post all positive shit on my page, it's gonna be great. So I fucking go ahead, I post a really positive, powerful image first thing in the morning. Gets a lot of good traction, everyone's like, this is great, this is great. I'm like, cool. Then I planned a great day because guess what was Monday? My fiance's birthday. That's right, her birthday's at the beginning of the week, and our anniversary is at the end of the week. So I've had a baller-ass week planned. I woke up, got rid of my fucking political post, went on Facebook, put some positive shit up, said, get dressed, girl, we getting brunch, you half white, you love this shit! Oh my God, yes, we went and got brunch at this new place, it was very fantastic, we loved it, day's going great. I'm like, all fall, she's been saying she wants to do some basic shit. She's like, we should do some basic shit, it'd be hilarious. Okay, could be fun, too. So I decided we should go to the cider mill. That's what you do in fall, right? Go to the cider mill. So Monday, we got in the car, drove up to cider mill, and it was going really well. Went inside, got some donuts, got some apple cider, went back outside. We were eating them in the truck, and remember I told you about the first hurdle, right? The first hurdle, ex-girlfriends, was the first hurdle we ran into. We got rid of that hurdle. We had apologies. We got rid of that hurdle. We go to fucking the cider mill, and sir, guess who shows up at the cider mill?
Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka fucking Trump, man! Are you fucking kidding me? The one time in my entire life I'm gonna meet Ivanka Trump, and it's on my fiance who hates politics fucking birthday. And she's in my truck enjoying the fuck out of a blueberry Danish. And I just don't have the heart to go back out there and be like, yeah, I'm sorry that I went inside to see who that person was who had 30 reporters and 5 SUVs with them. But it was Ivanka Trump. And then she starts cracking up. She's like, because she's like my biggest fan. She thinks I'm the funniest person on the planet. She's just like, Ivanka, okay, sure, funny. What'd you get while you were in there? I was like, kettle corn. Also, Ivanka Trump's really in there. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. And I showed her a picture, and she flipped the fuck out on me. She's like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I said, no fucking politics. I did not do this. This is not my fault. Just hates kettle corn, so I should have thought about that. We got time for one more? It's quick. It's actually quick for my saying it's quick. So, fuck this watch. So, did you take that watch out of me? Just pull it. You gotta pull the clasp like that. Yeah, open it. Open the clasp right there. Just pull it up. Just pull it. Pull it.
No, just close it on him. Just actually tighten the watch.
Here we go. All right. I didn't want it anymore. Whoever told him to close it on me. Okay, so my fiance's mother, my fiance is South Korean, and her mother, well, she's half South Korean, and her mother is South Korean. And her mother's like a very short South Korean woman named In-soon. She's very nice. She's made a very nice life for herself, but she's also very direct and super creepy. And the second time I met her, I felt like I was being put to a test, and I didn't like it. Because I went down there, I was doing some yard work over there for her, and she says, you hungry? And I said, yeah. She said, you want some fried rice? And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, but yes. So I'm like, this is probably gonna be fucking delicious. So I go inside, and she whips up fried rice in like 5 minutes. Like, just, and it smells fucking amazing. And I'm sitting down, I'm just like, oh my God, yes, fried rice from a fucking Korean woman. This is gonna be the greatest day of my life. She puts a giant bowl of fried rice in front of me, and I'm like, fuck yeah. And she sits down directly across from me, and then she puts a bottle of ketchup on the table.
Oh God.
And I was like, this is a fucking test? What the fuck is this? Like, she just stares at me. So I was just like, okay. You left, right? Yeah. Okay, bye. And she fucking left. What'd you pick? I just enjoyed this fucking shit. I had one more joke, but my jokes are always way too long. I'm Mike Logan. Have a nice night.